So, Competency 8, commitment to learning and self-development. I wonder whether this is sometimes a bit of a neglected one for our delegates. It's, oh, we've got to the end and, we're done. Yeah, you've learnt everything. Whereas I see this as being the start, actually.
Yeah.
Because as a coach, and I think we mentioned this a lot in the program, is that it's a bit like learning to drive. When you learn to drive with a driving instructor sitting next to you and you're learning the fundamentals, you pass your test and you learn to pass the test, but you don't really learn to drive until you're on your own and you're going for it and you're driving on your own. And it's the same with coaching. You're learning the fundamentals here. You're doing some brilliant practice. You're passing your observed practice at the end of module 4. But when you really learn to coach is coaching lots of different people in different scenarios, sitting in that space of, oh, I'm not quite sure what to do here. What am I noticing about myself? And that's that commitment to learning and self-development, is continuing to reflect. It's investing in your CPD and supervision, both of which are fundamentals of being a professional coach. That's your commitment to being an EMCC accredited practitioner. So you have to do that in order to maintain your practitioner status. But both of those are things that I think you kind of get to grips with once you've qualified. So supervision being really critical in terms of development, but also keeping you safe and keeping your clients safe. CPD, it's your commitment to continue to learn.
Yeah.
And that's why I see this. It's the last competency, but it's actually the first one in many respects as well.
And it definitely comes back to the self-awareness bit as well of if I think back to, like you were saying, that the learning to drive. So I couldn't wait to be like not being observed. Yeah, just let me go on with it. Yeah. And I also at that point was like, that's enough with models and theories and whatever. And I knew that for me personally at that point, if I'd have kept going on that was a bit sort of a comfort zone to say, well, I'll just learn more about it rather than doing it. So kind of paused a bit on my maybe intellectual learning and just did a lot of my learning came through practically coaching. And then I found that once I'd sort of maybe felt a bit more confident, I was like, oh, now I want to learn a bit, now what am I interested in? Do you see what I mean? So I think there was, again, a building of self-awareness around, well, what am I interested in? Where do I want to build? Where do I think the opportunities are in my coaching? But knowing when was the right time to do that rather than I'm lost.
Yeah, there's a bit of an interesting one for me around, I guess, industry-wide. As we're unregulated in the coaching space, I think quite often clients see CPD and supervision as nice to have. Yeah. Whereas in any other form of regulated industry, it's a need. And I guess there will become a point, hopefully, where from an industry perspective, we'll get to a place of regulation, which means then supervision becomes a requirement, must do. And I think that will be a really important changing point for organisations, because so many people want to get the certificate and then relax it and doing the work, rather than seeing the certificate as the base that then requires more fundamental investment to maintain supervision and CPD, which we see so many of our organisations do. And let's be honest, we see some organisations who don't. So there's a tension for me in unregulated industry around what you should have versus what is nice to have.
When you think about the language, it's coaching practice. Yeah. We are practitioners. Yeah. Yeah. So that's sort of thinking about that regulation, about being a practicing whatever. Yeah. But in this case, a practicing coach. You wouldn't be a practicing sports coach of a particular sport if you didn't continue to grow and learn and change and in terms of your own practice. So there's something about
being lawyer.
Absolutely. You've got to keep learning and growing. So and I think for us, as external coaches, that lifelong learning appetite is with us. I guess it is more challenging for internal coaches who have a full-time job that isn't coaching, and this is something that they then practice on side. And there's something for me about organisations, this is a big investment, both money and time and commitment. So where does coaching leadership really sit in their organisation? And we know ourselves, for the clients that really benefit from the impact that coaching leadership brings to their organisation, as well as having qualified coaches, are the ones that invest in supervision, because it says this practice matters and your development matters. You know, so for me, sometimes when I'm at supervision, it's that real sort of, oh gosh, you're also doing that thing or feeling that thing. Yeah. Sometimes it's really about then learning. Oh, that never come across that. Really interesting. Think about how we might get into that. That normative, formative, but then you've got that real restorative. I never leave coaching without going, at supervision without going, oh, I just feel a little bit lighter. I just feel like I'm so glad I checked in on that thing, or, you know, just had that space for me, the space that we give clients. You know, we have to role model that we do that for ourselves as well in our development.
And I think we have to call it, because, you know, 15 years practicing coaches, still having supervision, still getting new insights, noticing about themselves, coming across challenges that we couldn't attend to, we'd value some support around. So if you're new to CWC, you've qualified for 2 or 3 months, you are likely to be coming across patterns and things that you're getting stuck with. So if you haven't got supervision, what's happening? That qualification for me feels invalid very, very quickly. Of course, you can't take the qualification away, but there's a sense of, actually, established coaches use it and need it. Therefore, brand new level 5 qualified coaches must also have access to it. And what's the risk of not having it?
Yeah, I suppose I think as well that when you first qualify as a coach, because you've been so immersed in it, you've kind of done the learning, you almost go in thinking, I'm not sure I need supervision, or the kinds of conversations you're having because you're still becoming the coach you want to become, and you're at the beginning of that journey, you don't have sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't have those depth of conversations that then challenge you to think, oh, actually, can I coach here? Or I'm finding this difficult or challenging. So there's a bit of like, I don't need supervision. But you do. And also there's a bit of coaches having supervision because they have to, but not really engaging or thinking about what they're going to get from supervision, either from the people with it, if they're in group supervision with the people around them, or from the supervisor. So it probably, that commitment to learning and self-development, I think, evolves and changes the more you coach, and the value you can have of sitting in the space of somebody else who's a really experienced coach, supervisor, and you're a really experienced coach, and having a brilliant adult conversation and an exchange and a sharing of what would you have done, this is what I was noticing, having somebody you can be really honest with. And it gets a bit sort of sticky sometimes in coaching, and it does. That is really powerful.
Supportive,
Yeah.
isn't it? You know, it certainly is, you know, when this is your job, this is all you do is coaching, there's, you know, can be a little lonely around holding all this space for everybody, and it's nice to have that place where there is a bit of support.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was reflecting on as you were talking is I don't know, I've heard from lots of delegates as I've gone through this, is it's ignited maybe a focus for them on their own development occasions. So they might have been in more senior roles where they're kind of at a place maybe in their career where they're like, I know what I'm doing. I've done I've done the leadership courses, I've done all the things, and I'm done. And then they come on this course and they go, oh, I'm not done. Actually, there's also, and there's kind of, and I love that, though. It seems to be a reigniting of, actually, there is more to learn, and how can I grow? And there's like a curiosity maybe around what could come next. So it might not even be specifically about coaching. Yeah. So there is always development purely around your coaching skill, but it maybe opens up just a new passion for learning and growth, which I think is exciting.
And there's irrelevance for me. I know I'm really clear. that if we have a purpose which is to be leading edge in terms of global standard, then we also need to be leading edge in terms of relevance. And if the world is moving on, then we need to be ready to have those conversations and to meet the client where they're at. And if they're talking about AI in their business, maybe even embedding AI coaching, then we need an understanding of what does that mean for them, where might there be value in that, and where might they want to think in-person coaching. All of that relevance, psychometrics, mental health, neurodiversity, all of those things that keep coming up. How do we stay on point to ask the best questions?
We can move where they are.
Exactly.
Yeah. So as a competency 8, it's not the end, it's the beginning.
It's the start.
Yeah, and supervision is not a nice to have. It's absolutely critical in terms of continuing to develop as a coach, keeping you safe, keeping the client safe as well. And then from a relevance perspective, there is definitely something around as a coach. You have to keep yourself relevant to the clients you're working with. CPD, supervision, that commitment to learning and self-development keeps that relevance really high.
Super.